from PWE Music. I'm Dr. Patrick Englert, and today we have a clarinet masterclass on one of the low clarinet selections for TMEA All-State 2023 Etudes. And today we're going to be talking about the second selection, Etude 3 from the 32 Etudes by Rose. And as we do with TMEA Etudes, we'll be using the David Height edition. So if you'd like to hear how this etude goes, I have a video of it somewhere else on my page. Just search, I believe it's under the Rose project, and you'll be able to find a recording of this etude on bass clarinet. But let's dive in. First thing we want to talk about today is use a metronome. So I say this for all the slow etudes, and the reason for that, if you haven't seen another clarinet masterclass video going over a slow etude, the reason we want to use a metronome on the slow etudes is we really want to establish a good sense of pulse and a very strong rhythmic structure. So a lot of these etudes feature tons of different subdivisions, and this one's no different. We have 16th notes, triplets, triplet 16ths, 32nd notes, a whole buffet of different subdivisions, and the metronome is going to help us prevent those from all kind of becoming very similar sounding. We really want it to be clear, even if someone weren't looking at the music, what is going on, and so that working with the metronome is going to really help keep those subdivisions different. The second thing with that is if we have a strong rhythmic bass, strong sense of pulse, adding in rubato later is going to be much easier. And rubato is one of those things where if used properly, it can take an etude to the next level, make it sound really professional. And if you use it kind of haphazardly, it's going to be pretty apparent and may even sound like a mistake. Again, we want it to be extremely clear to a listener, even if they don't have the music in front of them, even if they don't know what your plan is. You want it to be very clear to them what you're doing and that you're doing it with intention. Second thing we'll talk about today, we have a lot of entrances at a soft dynamic in the upper register, which for bass clarinet or low clarinets can be a bit of a problem area. So work on that. We want to work on keeping the voicing from moving too much and keeping the tongue from moving too much. So the voicing is going to be the shape of your throat and the back of your tongue, and obviously the tongue is a little self-explanatory, but that's going to be mainly talking about articulation. So first, let's cover voicing. For the upper register, we want the back of the tongue to be a little bit higher than normal, so a little bit closer to that E that we think about for soprano clarinet. Maybe not quite as high, but we really want to lock that in when you're practicing and get a good sense of where the back of your tongue and your throat need to be in order to make these various notes sound right away. For the articulation, you want to remember tip of the tongue, tip of the reed. So you want to move just the tip of your tongue as little as possible to make sure that the back of the tongue isn't moving too much. And the way we can practice this is you get a mirror or you get your phone camera facing you on your stand and look underneath here. And if you can see a lot of movement here, that means your tongue is moving too much. You want to have a minimum of movement under here, even for low clarinets. Just because it's a bigger instrument doesn't mean we can't be light with our articulation. If you can work on those and keep the motion to a minimum, you'll have a lot better success at hitting these upper register entrances soft and speaking well. Building off of that, let's talk about dynamics. So this etude, like many of the lyrical ones, has a lot of dynamic markings. And the big thing with dynamics that we want to cover is making sure that the soft dynamics still have full clarinet tone and are consistent. So the pitfall that many students fall into is getting too soft on their pianos and pianissimos so that the sound kind of cuts out or may get a little bit fuzzy. We want it to be nice and full and consistent, as I said, even in those softer dynamics. So the way we can work on this is find where your basement is, find where your pianissimo is, and build up from there. Remember that dynamics are proportional, and especially for something that you're playing truly solo, no accompaniment, it's just you performing in the audition room. Dynamics are proportional, so wherever your pianissimo is, if you can make sure that your piano is louder than that, mezzo piano is louder than that, mezzo forte, so on and so forth. If we have a good spectrum of dynamics and it's evenly proportioned, that's going to be better than just having those softer dynamics be kind of wishy-washy and not very well supported and kind of fuzzy tone. Dynamics are proportional, Make sure your soft dynamics are still full and consistent, and you'll have the greatest chance of success. The next topic we'll cover are how to achieve some of these leaps with the greatest success. So this etude has a lot of larger interval leaps, especially going from the lower register to the upper register. And the two things we want to remember with this is we want to have good air support and fast fingers. So good air support, what I tell a lot of my students is you want to think about filling up that gap between the notes with air. So we can see the notes are not next to each other like a scale. We have an interval. So imagine filling that gap up with air as you go from the lower to the higher or the higher to the lower. Next, we want to have fast fingers. So with lower clarinets, we don't always get an opportunity to work on faster technique. Here's that chance. Make sure the fingers are quick and cover all the holes so that the instrument is ready to produce that pitch that you need. One of the bigger problems with getting some of these upper register notes out is that when you're putting all of your fingers down, they're maybe not fast enough or coordinated enough to close everything when it needs to be closed, and that's what leads to squeaks. The final thing we'll cover today are talking about some of these trills. And with this, the main rule of thumb with these trills is that you want it to sound natural. You don't want it to sound like you're really struggling with it. It should come off very effortlessly and fluidly in the music. And so usually that means you're going to start a little bit slower, get faster, and then you may stop and sit on the note that you're trilling from before moving on to the next thing. If you have any questions, listen to some professionals and how they might trill and try to emulate that. We want to avoid it sounding mechanical or like you're trying to go as fast as possible. Just because it's fast doesn't mean it always needs to be the fastest possible thing, especially in a more lyrical etude where we're going slower, faster, using rubato. Not everything needs to be as fast as possible. Some of these trills may also need to find an alternate fingering, so get on the internet, look for fingering charts or alternate trill fingerings if one is giving you trouble. That about covers it for Etude 3. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. As always, like, subscribe, do the social media things. It's greatly appreciated. Check out the Patreon and support the channel if you're so inclined, and we'll catch you in the next one. If you made it this far, thanks for watching through the entire video. I hope it was helpful. Normally this is where I have a card with links to my Patreon and my Etsy, but I wanted to take a second to give you an idea of what you're going to find at both of those. For my Patreon, there's one level, $5 a month, and that's to help keep these videos coming out. I know lessons can be expensive, and I want this information to be able to be found regardless of your situation, whether you can take lessons or not. The $5 a month also gets you access to a PWE Music Discord server, which if it's not up when you're watching this video, it should be soon. And as of right now, that's just an opportunity to ask me questions, get my thoughts on things, and hopefully as the community grows, you'll be able to get in touch with clarinetists and musicians from around the world. At my Etsy shop, you'll find custom woodworking, and applicable to this are custom reed cases. So as a woodworker, I enjoy making accessories for musical instruments, and everybody should have a reed case if you don't. And not that you need to have a fancy custom one, but I do offer 3D printed reed cases as well as custom wood cases. So hopefully you'll check out either one, give some support to the channel, and I'll keep these videos coming.